Not yet. Let me stop it. Oh, okay. I stopped it. Okay.
Right. You gotta do the intro.
Mm-mm.
My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah, 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 yeah. From Monday to Sunday, from Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, eh? In diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello. It's Friday night. Welcome to FOL. This is Friday Night Debate. It's great that you could join us. Tonight, we have basically just two items to unpack. We're looking to take a look at the Supreme Court ruling today. The much anticipated Supreme Court ruling is out. And so we'll take a deep dive into that and see if we can, make sense of it. We also know during the week, the governor of Liberia put out a new agenda for the arrest agenda for inclusion and development, and of course the county, I think, development agenda together. Some $8.4 billion is expected to be expended in Liberia over the next 5 years. So we'll look at those two. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to have my colleagues here with me tonight. Let's welcome Jimmy Eastman from the nation's capital. Jimmy, what's up?
Glad to be here, man. Big day in Liberia today.
Indeed. Duke, all the way from up north. Welcome, brother. What's up in Canada?
Well, it's getting cold here. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Lucky you. It's only just getting for us. We're already in a deep freeze on the East Coast here. But listen, gentlemen, welcome. Let's do our quick intros, man. We've all been waiting for this much ruling from the Supreme Court, and yesterday they sent out an alert that they were going to pass the ruling down today at about 11 o'clock Liberian time. Was it 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
And indeed they did. They did. After much back and forth, from first the justice in chamber, Justice Basic. No, I can't touch this. No, put a halt under this. No, go ahead. No, don't. The full bench then was in panel, and now we have a ruling. So let's take a stab at it quickly. Your intro, your understanding of what transpired today, and starting with you, Duke.
Well, I think the ruling in of itself is a victory for democracy, as they say. Except that I do have my reservations as to where is this going to be leading us, and because even in the Supreme Court's ruling, they did acknowledge that some aspect of the Constitution is a gray area, and they did acknowledge that. Now, with that said, I think this only dampened the enthusiasm of the majority bloc, but I don't think this is going to be a definitive end to this saga.
Okay. Jimmy, what do you think? Duke feels
Well,
like
I think
Duke
I
feels
think
like
for
we're
the sake
in
of
nowhere.
our audience, I think for the sake of our audience, yeah, it wouldn't hurt if we read the statement.
Sure.
The
We'll get to
ruling.
it. Let's just do a quick intro, and then we'll have you set it up, and
So,
we can put that
so
on and read it.
so what I gathered was the Supreme Court tried to guide the legislature that anything done beyond the law, they use the statement ultra varies. If anything done beyond your jurisdiction is not legal, is not law, you know. And so as a result, you know,
Is that where is that coming
uh,
from?
I think they advise correctly, and they're giving the legislature a chance to correct itself.
Where is that coming from, Victor?
Advise.
Jimmy is in control right now. I'm just moderating. Jimmy will know. So yeah, he
Oh,
got.
okay.
I think it's coming from him. So I
Oh, okay.
see. I see here, Councilor Freeman is watching. It's good of you to watch. My learned counselor. We'll get to your question. Let's unpack this. But yeah, Duke. I mean, Jimmy is coming back. So yes,
Yeah,
he started by going to the language. I think the legalese is the plain text of the statement or the ruling. Ultra virus.
yeah,
Obviously, yeah. So those are some of the things that were said. But I wanted us to first take a look at what it is that Speaker Kofa was complaining to the court about. So I know it's written all over the place. Yeah. So I'm looking at the front page Africa here. So he complained about the sections being held outside of the official chambers, the official chambers of the House.
yeah,
He complained about removing him without due process, extrajudicially,
yeah,
and then nullifying his committees that he formed and forming new committees instead. And of
yeah,
course, illegally hijacking and receiving the budget. So those are some of the
yes.
things that he prayed the Supreme Court to address. And so the court did address some of those. I believe they did. Won't you say?
Well, I was saying that's why both parties were claiming victory, you know, and because when you look at the way the Supreme Court interpreted the law, there's a little bit in there for both sides.
Correct.
You know, like you said, those aspects that you just mentioned were some of the issues that the petitioner did ask the court to address, and indeed the court did address that. But coming to the core of the problem itself, where what constitutes a majority to hold business of the House of Representatives, and the mechanism, I think the court was clear that there is no internal mechanism in place that guides these things.
Right.
And I think when brother, what's his name, Freeman, is that what he's called? When he was on
Councilor,
this forum before, pardon me?
Councilor Freeman.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, these are all uncharted territories. We've
Right.
never been here before. So we need, and even the Supreme Court did not address that, because they said this requires an internal sort of a rule that governs the way the the House functions. You know, now how is that going to work? Is it going to go back to Councilor Kufa, or are they going to deal with it as the majority bloc had it? So, and that's what I was said. I said last week. I said the Supreme Court judgment is going to come down, but I don't think it's going to be definitive. Where the plain text of the Constitution is going to be interpreted to resolve the issue. So, as you can see in this ruling, it did not do that.
No.
You know.
But here is the two key things, right? And I was talking to some of my friends, legal luminaries who are pretty versed in the Liberian law. Like you said, I think both sides could claim to be walking away with something.
That's right.
Yeah, the speaker's side, I think the Supreme Court. Well, first of all, right off the bat, the Supreme Court affirmed its jurisdiction, is authority to adjudicate this matter. It did also affirm Speaker Kofa that according to Article 49, right? I think 49 specifically. So wherever the House meets, there must be a presiding officer who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Only in his absence will the deputy speakers conduct business. I think they affirmed that.
Yes.
And then the whole question of ultra-virus, that is something that they could also expand on to say, okay, so the Supreme Court is saying that the 43 were acting outside of the laws. Whatever they were doing was unconstitutional. And those two pieces of argument could constitute ground for the speaker's side to argue that they got something out. But now the Supreme Court is also saying that the Constitution is void on the question of how to compel an absent side to come back into chambers. And therefore,
that's right.
I think it is asking them to go back and address that, which was the reason for which they went to the Supreme Court anyway.
That's right.
Figure out how to address that. So, Jimmy, it's nice of you to come back on. Brother Sheriff, man, welcome on the show. Basically, we're treating two topics here: the ruling today, and of course, then we'll talk about the president's agenda for inclusive development, arrest agenda for inclusive development, which has now been launched, I think, for a 5-year span for about $8.4 billion or so. So, Duke, if you were lending, otherwise I'll let Mohammed introduce himself. Make his intro.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mohammed, go ahead, brother. Welcome.
Thank you. So it's great to be here.
Okay. So, Jimmy.
Yeah.
You were in mid-sentence when you left, and we continue from there. I think you started a question of the ultra-virus. Duke is arguing that both sides can claim to have walked away with something, and I will not disagree. I think the 43 will say, well, in the Supreme Court, they told us to come back and address this matter. So now we have to go and deliberate. But here is what my friends were telling me from Monrovia today, my legal friends. So in order for the 43 to go back and couch out a mechanism to address this problem, they need a presiding officer. We don't have. But in order for the presiding officer to preside over this, he needs a majority, which he doesn't have. So now, where are we in all this thing? Have we made any progress? Are we going backwards? Are we going forward? Are we stagnant?
The majority bloc, they are adamant that they will not sit under the gavel of Speaker Fanaji Kofa.
Correct.
And what I don't understand is that you have a legitimate complaint, and You have outlined various wrongdoings by the speaker. Why not present this to the body and allow the procedure to take its course? But
Right.
instead, they saying they are not going to sit under the gavel without first bringing this to the floor. Why are they doing? And so the ruling on from the to me, the ruling from the Supreme Court meant first of all, you if you're going to do anything, you have to do it correctly. You have to do it with the authority you have. You cannot assume authority that you don't have. And if you do anything out of your own authority, it's going to be considered ultra vires. So that's what one thing they could. But the Supreme Court also said that they need to go and resolve the issue. I really don't understand why the majority bloc refuses to go and present their case and to the plenary, and I have the speaker recuse himself. I really don't understand the reason for them not doing that.
All right. So I got you, Mohammed. Jimmy is, but the same question could be put to the speaker. The question that Jimmy is asking, could the speaker cross over? And you know, I mean, ever since today, there have been several interpretations. There is one school of thought that, well, at least the speaker has made his point. The Supreme Court has affirmed him as the Speaker of the House. Why can't he just put on the big pants and go to the 43 and say, okay, look, you tried this, you failed, but I want the country to move forward. And so I'm coming in. Let us talk this thing through. And if it be my removal, I'm prepared to recuse myself so that we can get on with the business of the Liberian people. What do you say?
Yeah, J. Victor. Fornati Kofa, Speaker Kofa has said that after the ruling, he has announced that he's going to call on his colleagues, from the other side, the dissidents, the rebels. He didn't particularly call them rebels. I am calling them rebels, legislative rebels. He's going to reach out to them and bring them over. This is a great day for law and order. This is a great day for the Constitution of the Republic. And now it remains to be seen if the dissidents will, if the rebel elements will honor the Supreme Court of the Republic. This is supposed to be a nation of laws and not men. But these guys, it seems to be that they're going to continue their shenanigans. They're going to continue to pull the country down. They have gone down. Their attempted coup d'etat has gone down in flames. They don't mind taking the nation down with them. J. Victor, they want to take the rest of us down with them. So they don't care. This is not a patriotic thing that they are doing. They're doing this for the money. These guys are well paid. They're well financed. And I want to believe that this is with the acquiescence of the executive mansion. Executive mansion has not distanced itself from, this nonsense of, a constitutional coup d'etat. Every time there is a speaker, you see that the mansion is interfering into the legislative process and the legislative leadership process. And this should stop now. And I'm glad that I was on this show asking that Speaker Kofa stays. I'm glad that he stayed. He fought this, and I'm hopeful that he's going to continue to fight this all the way. And while I'm at it, I like to send out commendations to compliments to some guys who stood with the speaker in this matter. One of them is Yaka Koluba. Yaka Koluba, was always announcing that they're trying to buy them over, but he's never going to be bought. Honorable Musa Ability and others who play critical roles and they stuck with the speaker. So this is the Constitution at work. And the dissidents are not going to accept the Constitution, and we need to tell them like it is. They are dissidents. They need to support the constitutional process.
Duke, Mohammed is making a great point, and quite frankly, I myself, I read, the Front Page Africa reporting that the speaker has indicated that over the next coming days, he wants his colleagues to discuss his transition, which I think, like Mohammed is saying, I think it's an indication that he's ready to move on. But observers are saying that the 43, there's so much fragility within this camp, right? I mean, there were reports this morning, Thursday, yesterday. There was no session because they didn't have a quorum. There were reports that the former Mrs. Faculty, Julie Faculty, and others are expressing their dissatisfaction over the manner in which Kun was elected. And looks like the 43 may never put a vote on the floor for Kofa's removal because they don't have the numbers. Even if they put it on the floor, they may not get a 49. Do you see this? Do you see us coming through out of all of this, being able to move forward? Even if Speaker Kofa were to announce that he's ready to move on, would the 43 ever call this process as it is prescribed by the Constitution? Come on the floor, make your point, put a resolution on the floor, call for a vote, and remove the speaker. Will you think we'll ever see that happening?
I don't think so. And you see, even before this ruling came down, Speaker Konati had been making overtures to the rebels, to the breakaway faction, to the breakaway majority. And these overtures were not reciprocated from the other side. And also, let's not forget, in the not too distance, we have a history where we don't usually respect the law, even when it comes from the Supreme Court. And there have been numerous examples where the Supreme Court has decided certain cases, and they were not followed. That's not new. And again, that's why both sides are claiming victory, because the way the Supreme Court interpreted the law, they themselves acknowledge that there is a gray area, and that was why it was at the Supreme Court to begin with, so that there should be no gray area when they interpret the law. Instead, they came back with a decision that did not really settle this case once and for all, despite what either side is going to say. They are not going to abide by because you see, now this is only going to cool things down for a bit, and then we're going to be at square one, exactly where we were before this Supreme Court decision was rendered. Now, you expect in a normal, dispute, even if you do not agree with the Supreme Court judgment, but you have to abide by it because it's the highest court in the land. Whatever they say should bring a resolution to whatever it was. But like I said, we don't have a good history of doing that in our country, and so I wouldn't be surprised when the breakaway majority is still going to be holding out by interpreting in some bizarre way whatever that was said today by the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Duke. Jimmy, the point Duke is making, I've heard other legal scholars argue that the Supreme Court could have gone further and be much clearer. I see the argument being put forth by Councillor Freeman that the Supreme Court is also concerned with maintaining the peace. But one of my colleagues, a legal expert, was telling me that this matter contains both matters that are justiciable. I believe that's the word, and none that, and some that are non-justiciable, some that cannot be resolved through the legal means, judicial means. For instance, the Supreme Court can affirm who the speaker is, what the Constitution says, who the presiding officer is, and all that, but it cannot make the absent members to come under the gavel of the speaker. That is a matter that should be resolved by themselves at home or in their house. So, Duke is already believing that the 43 may ignore the Supreme Court. Is there anything that the 43 has to do based on the ruling from the Supreme Court today, in your judgment, Jimmy?
Well, the fact of the matter, the reason why they said there's nothing to compel those absent members to go back under the gavel is because they haven't made rules. The Supreme Court will examine the law, the rules, and make a judgment based on that. Right. But if there's no existing law compelling the renegade group to go back, there's nothing that the Supreme Court can rule. But the Supreme Court was very articulate when they told them that you can't do anything beyond your authority.
Correct.
So to me, that means you cannot start dissolving or reappointing committees. You cannot remove a speaker if you haven't assumed the authority required to do that. But when it comes to you guys sitting down under and deciding, that is on you. But just make sure you can't do something that you don't have the authority to do. Okay, and that is how they try to advise them. They try to stare them. And let's face it, gentlemen, what gives anyone the power to simply get a group of people together and to circumvent the democratic processes that we have all agreed to live by? If we're going to allow these things to happen, then we don't have a democracy. People can go after somebody is duly elected as president. They can go and say, "No, we're not going to accept that you are president," or we're signing a petition that you shouldn't be president. Yeah. So, what needs to happen, in my own opinion, is that, look, majority block, present your claims, present your complaints, your allegations, present it to the plenary, and go from there. But if you fear presenting it because you don't have the numbers, then you should have done that. You should have thought of that before you came forward. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's plain. It's very plain. You have to do this the proper way.
Right.
Now, we all know what they're trying to. They're trying to just force Funati to resign, and Funati said, "No, I'm not."
They want to bring pressure to bear on him, and
that's it.
That's make him feel the heat. Mohammed, some weeks ago we were here, and some of us were arguing that the executives being pragmatic here. They're looking at the numbers and who to submit the budget to, and therefore they choose the numbers and all that. But we're hearing the Senate, because the House does not function in isolation, right? They need concurrence from the Senate, and we're hearing some of the senators are saying they're not touching any budget that's coming from that will be played with by the 43. So now the problem that the executive was hoping to resolve by following the numbers may still remain. Do you see us having a budget for 2025 anytime soon?
Yeah, first, before I delve into that question, make no mistake, this is a great victory for Speaker Fanati Kofa and his people, his loyalists who stood by him, and the Liberian people who stood by him. This is a defeat for, as Jimmy said, I want to borrow Jimmy, the Renegades. This is a defeat for them. Make no mistake about this. This is not a victory for them, so they cannot proclaim victory here. Where if they proclaim that, if any of them call you now and say, we also won, ask them, where is your speaker that you elected? You, the purported speaker that you elected to take over from Fanati Kofa, where is that speaker now? If they show you where that speaker position is tonight, then yeah, then they won. They didn't win anything. And the Supreme Court was in its legal lane to basically interpret the Constitution. That is the role of the court. The court is basically saying, here is the law. We're going to tell you what the law is. You go back and fix what needs to be fixed. I cannot make these people who are, the dissidents, rebel elements, I can't make them come to you, Mr. Speaker. But you guys, first of all, there's no majority. Let's not call them majority black. That's not in the Constitution. That's unconstitutional. By virtue of calling them a majority black, that is unconstitutional. I read the Constitution. It's not in there. There's no majority. There's no minority. There's a speaker who presides over the House. And the Supreme Court tells them that. They were told that. So that is in black and white. The problem is a lot of these guys do not read the Constitution. They don't know what the Constitution is. They're lawmakers. You ask some of them now, dear Victor, bring some of them on this show and quiz them on the Constitution. Ask them, when was this Constitution adopted? What year? Just ask them, just give them basic civic questions. They're not going to answer this. Believe me. Ask them, what year was the Constitution adopted? When was Liberia's first Constitution drafted? Ask them these basic civic questions. They don't know. And so they don't know a lot of the things that's going on. So therefore, they don't care when they're usurping, someone is usurping the Constitution to benefit themselves. They're not looking at the greater good also. So this is a victory. This is why you saw supporters of the speaker out there, in jubilant mood, and they should be. This is a big, big win for them. And so they can celebrate however they want. This is a win. Speaker maintains his position. The other guys ran away to resign, some of them, but Speaker Kofa, under pressure, stood his grounds along with his supporters. And this is how democracy should work. And lastly, before I finish up this point, in Senegal, I make a comparison. In Senegal recently, the former president tried to delay the conduct of the election recently. The opposition went to the Supreme Court to force the president to hold election, which he did. He honored the Constitution. Recently in Liberia, during our election, the incumbent president, Mr. Weah, while the ballots were still being counted, someone that I did not support at all. You heard me on this show. While the ballots were still being counted in a very, very close and competitive election, when he saw that he was not winning, he put the numbers together, he listened to the people, and he conceded and congratulated the president-elect Brouhaha. I will hope that Mr. Brouhaha upholds the Liberian Constitution and not play these games. Don't play no games. Don't play no games. He is a man that some of us love. He's an elderly man. He looks very serious about the country. There are things that he said that, other than things that he has done now that others didn't do. But please don't play games with this whole ordeal
Right.
in the House of Representatives.
My dear brother, you make a great point. I honestly agree with you. I think this is a big day for the rule of law. I think the rule of law today won. As the speaker's statement said, this wasn't a win for a black, like, and I always call it 43 or whatever they call it, But this is a win for the rule of law. Now, do you think, Duke? Based on the argument Mohammed is pushing, you think the president, the executive, will see the wisdom that he's pushing here and help to tilt? Because right now, where we are now, we're pretty much at a stalemate. The speaker doesn't have the numbers, but he is the speaker to preside. The 43, they don't have the number to remove the speaker. They don't have a presiding officer. Do you think the executive will now see the wisdom of the Supreme Court and say, you know what? We want to resubmit the budget, for instance, or we're going to send a minister of state down to go and meet with the speaker, and just as Mo Ali and the rest went to the 43, we'll now begin to prop up, Fonati and reverse this thing and bring it back on course. Do you see that happening?
The short answer is no, I don't. And I think there's no question about the
Councilor
fact that
Freeman believes that Speaker Kofa will never get a number, so he's toast. And that's what most are saying. But go ahead.
yeah, I think Brother Sharif put it beautifully. Democracy has won, but that just I think that's more of a rhetoric than a reality that we are seeing. As much as we like to say we are a country of laws and not of men, I actually think the opposite. We're a country of men and not laws, because not following our laws, it didn't start today. It didn't start yesterday. And like I said, I can enumerate countless examples where the Supreme Court came down with decision and it was not followed. They didn't care about it. So this is not any different. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, this should have put an end to this whole saga where the disputing parties will come together and say, listen, the Supreme Court has spoken, even though some of the areas that they left out, we can iron that out within our internal setup. I mean, that's how you would expect a normal in a normal dispute for people to behave. But we have come to internalize this mentality of my position is the right position no matter what. And otherwise, I mean, the Supreme Court should be the last place to adjudicate any dispute, especially when it's got to do with the law and its interpretation. So again, I hope that cooler head will prevail on both sides. And I say both sides simply because even though Councilor Konate has legally won this battle, he should continue his overture to the other party, so that they can bring harmony and they can work together. But again, because of the way they've now used to doing things, and we have two presidents that have taken place in the same house, and that will embolden this breakaway faction, as we call them renegades, whatever you want to call them. But again, we shouldn't be where we are today, but unfortunately we are there. So now I can only see a situation where, despite the victory, despite all what people expect, and Kunati will just give up, and that is the expectation from the other side. Despite the ruling from Supreme Court. But I don't think on the ground much has changed. I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, it's just the unfortunate reality that we are up against.
Right. So, Jimmy, you just popped right back in. I don't know if you're stabilized. Are you with us?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm listening here to Duke here. I mean, I know, and Mohammed is a student of politics. We all here follow the news. I know the Liberian government has ignored the what's that big? How do we ECOWAS court, right? I mean, we know the famous Kabina Jana case, Nese Bido, Yeke Kulba, all these people. But
Yes.
I'm not sure if there is an instance where the Supreme Court has been ignored. Do you think this 43? I mean, yes, there is not a clear cut, victory from what we're all reading. This decision we're all still taking it apart. I'm still trying to see here. How do we break this stillness? Is there a rapprochement anywhere from any coming from anywhere here? You think the pronouncement by the speaker that in the next coming days he's preparing for his transition? I don't know how that's going to be effectuated. You think this could be our way out of this by Kofa realizing, look, I think I have made my point. I have indicated to these people that the way they were trying to remove me was extrajudicial. I stood my ground. Now that the court has spoken, I am going now to call them in wherever they are. If they are in Douala, wherever they is, Logantown, I will follow them there and tell them, look, here I am. Let's do this thing and get it over with so that we can break this logjam. You think this is how this is going to proceed?
Yeah, I definitely believe that statement by Speaker Kofa, that about his transition, means that he realizes that he will not stay speaker very much longer. However, it has to take its due process because he is not resigning. What I think may happen, even though he hasn't resigned yet, but for the sake of the nation and the doing of the people's business, he may succumb and decide that so that we can go about and do business as usual, he will succumb to the pressure. But unfortunately for me, I don't accept this white ballot. If you want to go,
that would have been my next question to you or to Mohammed.
Yes.
If would he have won without the due process? I mean, that's what. Even though the court says, but if he's not accorded due process, would he have still won this thing? I mean, the 43 might just decide we're not giving you due process.
Here's the thing: they don't need any legal claim against him to say they don't want him anymore. Yes, they're using these accusations or allegations to corroborate their decision not to sit on him.
Right.
But they don't need it. They can just say we don't want to sit on you anymore, period.
Right.
They don't need any legal,
which they are entitled to do.
Yes.
But there is a process. And I think this is what the argument has been about all along, Mohammed. There is a process, and just like you have indicated, and many people all of us have indicated here, this is about the rule of law, doing it right. And the Supreme Court has affirmed that whatever they were doing there is extrajudicial, ultra virus. So now the speaker is signaling that he may be willing and prepared to meet them wherever they are now. Now that all of this has been, made clear, but do you think the 43 will cooperate with him?
I hope, but I have my doubt. I mean, these guys, their noses have been bloody now, legally speaking. So, and there are men and some women, I believe, of some kind of pride that I don't understand. And so a lot of them are not going to come around. Keep in mind, they're in the employ of people connected to the executive mansion. So the mansion is not going to sit by and get defeated this way. So I'm not saying conclusively that the president himself, but heck, it could the line could go right up to him if his vice president, who is now a member of the Unity Party, is behind this. What are they talking in the executive mansion? What do they discuss when him and his vice president meet? Why is it that the president is not assertive? They're claiming, uh, uh, separation of powers. However, you go to this 43 dissidents and handing them your draft budget.
Right.
So therefore you try to tip the scale. That's what Mr. Boyka tried to do. We all know, we all understand. He's trying to tip the scale.
I mean, there's much to be said about that, Mohammed, because as you continue to make your point, I mean, this president was the one who invited the speaker to join him in the Vatican.
To join him in the Vatican.
And then he invited him to Sierra Leone when Kun got elected in his absence. So,
yes. And
I mean, now invited, but he was in Sierra Leone. But anyway, make your point, my brother. It's just the coincidences, like you're saying.
Right.
It's just too many.
And he took this man to Rome to meet the Pope. And you Catholics and the Pope, I don't know who's Catholic on here.
I am a Catholic.
You're a Catholic. Okay, you Catholic. I went to Catholic school. You Catholics and the Pope. I mean, this is a big deal. So you take this man, the opportunity of a lifetime, to go and actually shake hands with the Pope. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. And while he's there, meanwhile, you're going to put the proverbial knife in his backside.
Exactly.
This is immoral.
Yeah.
This is incongruent with any kind of Christian principle that, my Liberian friends quickly remind me, oh, we were founded on Christian principle. They remind me of these lies, right? These historical inaccuracies. And we were founded on Christian principles. Well, Liberia was never founded on Christian principles. The next time somebody tell me this, all of what you do, is it congruent? Does it align with Christian values? All of the things that you're doing now, all of the theft, the backstabbing, and all of these different things. You take a man to meet the Pope, and while he's out there, a group of dissident lawmakers try to overthrow him.
Right.
What are his crimes? They cannot tell you what his crimes are, other than the fact that money was changing hands. In any other country, in the great United States of America, these guys will be in jail. These guys will be tried. These guys will be under, at the very least, FBI investigation. Lawmakers taking money, bribes, to overthrow their speaker.
Right.
This is the worst in Liberia, and now what they're willing to do. And our brothers and sisters from ECOWAS came in and tried to make peace. And they refused to listen to the brothers and sisters from ECOWAS. They refused to honor ECOWAS. And during our tragedy, during our national calamity, our national nightmare, our brothers and sisters from West Africa, from ECOWAS, were the ones that came in and stopped the carnage. Among other things, stop the carnage and try to rebuild the democracy that we have now. And why can you uphold that democracy in the name of peace, in the name of harmony? Liberia was established. Liberia was established as the home of liberty. People from everywhere. Me, my great-grandfathers, migrants who came to Liberia to seek freedom and a good life. And this is the Liberia now that's been destroyed by these people who were out there protesting. Maybe Jim Victor, I don't know, maybe, 79, were you part of this? I mean, guys protesting against, we need our country back. We want our country back. And this is what they're doing to their country.
Just before you got on, Mohammed, Jimmy and I, we're talking just about what you were asking. The absence of a national plan, basically that's what we're debating. Where is our national plan? 10, 15, 20-year plan. Right. And we were saying that, I was saying the progressives, they had some ideas of a national plan. But the militancy, the agitation was hijacked by the 1980 coup makers.
Okay.
Yes, and we're talking about Samuel Doe coming on the scene and all of that. But you're right. There is a reason why we agitated, and those reasons, unfortunately, some of them still remain, but some of them have even intensified. And we'll come to this agenda here. The finance minister making some pronouncements. Trying to take the per capita to over $1,000. In the next 5 years or so. We'll talk about that. But yeah, what is our national plan? What is our national agenda? What is it? It is bad enough that there is none. And then these little fragments that are developed by this president, every new president wants his own new plan. But we'll come to that. But I was going to come to you, Duke. This is, I hate to peddle in rumor, but this is in the press. So it's not rumor anymore. The fracture within the 43. And this morning I read somewhere, in fact, last night, that the deputy speaker may not be very well. I mean, I wish him speedy recovery. But there are reports that he has been flown to India. Now we're hearing other people are saying Kun is not a real person they wanted. They wanted Fala and all of this thing here. Is there a reason for us to, worry about? Because I feel any amount of instability, it undermines potential progress. If the 43, as much as I would wish for them to come back to the 30 so that they can all, but should we be worrying about infighting and all kinds of these reports, or do you think they're just speculation? We should move on. But I did read somewhere that the deputy speaker was flown to India for health reasons.
Yes, and I mean, are you surprised that our lawmakers and people who are in government have been flown to India, Ghana, and other places? That's that is the.
I mean, people get taken for advanced treatment even when it's time they're doing Liberia, they go out overseas.
You know what, Victor, let me remind you and our listeners there. Look, people used to come from the sub-region and go to the public hospital in Bonny Hills.
I think
you know why? Because there were Chinese people there.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And those Chinese were using traditional Chinese medicine, leaves and herbs, you name it. And people were coming from Ivory Coast, from Mali, from you name it, to come to Bonny Hills, not in Monrovia, in Bonny Hills. All right. And so you see people being flown to India, to Ghana. That is the situation we've created for ourselves.
Yeah.
You see, usually, and that's why I keep saying here, we are not a country of law as much as we like to portray that. That's just the reality that we have. When you talk about people saying Liberia was not founded on a Christian principle, who perpetrated that nonsense? No one other than Joy Howard Taylor, the Vice President of the Republic. Can you imagine? I heard her say this. And so if it's coming from the Vice President, what do you expect for the layman on the street to do or to say? I don't know if you remember hearing this. I heard people say to me, it's Samuel Doe who made Mandingos Liberians. Didn't you hear that? You know why? Because somebody at top that people listen to said it. And so when Joseph Boakai presented his budget to the breakaway, what do you expect? In a certain way, he's recognizing the breakaway. He's recognizing lawlessness. All the things that he shouldn't be doing, that's what he was doing right there. Since when we presented budget to a breakaway faction? But this is, I don't like to be seen as the guy who is always on the other side, but it's unfortunately our Liberian reality. And we have to come to terms with those realities because you know what? It should be clear like the sun. Mr. President, you have no right, no legal responsibility to present your budget to a breakaway fashion. Because legally speaking, they have no legal standing. So when you go present your budget to them, you are legitimizing them. You are making them to look genuine. You are making them, you are validating their argument. You are sort of accepting their argument when you shouldn't be, But then that is where we found ourselves. This is, and so when our leaders are supposed to be leading us, they're supposed to be the good and the best example of law abiding, are behaving this, what do you expect? So this only and you see in the judgment that the Supreme Court came now with today, there is a section of it where the Supreme Court was asking for internal mechanism to resolve, like an internal rule that will govern certain way of making certain determination in the House. Now that can only happen when the two parties come together to come up with a rule. Now that's not going to happen because, like I said, Victor, this ruling is not going to bring an end to this saga, and the expectation is that this is going to linger around. They're going to continue refusing to abide by the ruling until such time that maybe Councillor Bonatti will say, I'm giving up. That's what they are expecting. I mean, so they don't care about what happens to the people's business. They don't care what's going to. I mean, even the image this is going to send to the outside world, they don't care. What matters to them is their pocket and how much you can line it up. So you know what? I hate to be the one who is bearing this on welcome news, but we are not too far from a failed state. I mean, on a normal circumstance, this should have been a no-brainer. You know what? The Supreme Court has spoken. That's it. Let's move on. But that's not what we are used to. That's not what we like to do. We heard, you saw when the TLC came up with their ruling and they said who was supposed to be barred from whatever. We saw what the president did, what Ellen Johnson did. She circumvented the ruling and she went on to be president. And I mean, like I said, there are just enough examples to tell us, to show us how all of this is going to end.
Gentlemen, we're almost at the halfway mark, and so I will give each of you a minute, starting with Jimmy. Go around if there's anything that you thought you left out on this topic, and then we'll move on to the president's relaunched agenda. But as you do that, Jimmy, a few days ago, a number of us were, prognosticating the political death of Fonati Kofa. You think this guy may have revived himself, especially now announcing that, he's prepared to begin his transition. I mean, this man stood for the rule of law, regardless, whatever his personal foibles may be. But this is the man who championed the cause for those of us who believe in the rule of law. And now he's communicating now. He's ready to be the bigger man in the room. He's prepared for the sake of Liberia. To call it a day. He may not get 100% perfection to what he preferred, but at least he has brought these people back on course, and so he's prepared to make them set things right. You think he may have revived himself here politically? If he did, as it's been reported. I think Jimmy is muted. You're muted, Jimmy.
Yes, I don't foresee him staying as speaker because he has too much opposition. There's too many of his colleagues don't want him there, and it will be difficult. It will be very difficult for him to rule, to manage, or to preside over such a body that they don't want him there. It'll be too challenging. You see, the president is clothed with certain powers that can mandate people to follow him. But as speaker among your equals, you don't have that power. So it's going to be very challenging for him to continue, no matter what the outcome is. However, I'm glad that he's making a stance so that we can examine the rule of law and how it applies. But just what you said, I in total agreement. Are we really a country that follows the rule of law? I like to say we're not. I agree with you. We made a citizenship law that if you take on a citizenship from another country, you cannot hold certain positions in our country. But we know very well there's several U.S. citizens that are sitting in top positions in the legislature, in the government, and we're aware of this. So why are we making laws that we don't want to adhere to? What is the use of that? I think we need to take a deep reflection and agree that there's certain laws we don't want to follow and get rid of those laws because we're not following them. What's the use of having a law that you know very well you're circumventing each and every time?
All right.
So maybe this is an opportunity, but it requires work. And this I will stop right here.
Right.
It requires research. It requires digging very deep and going through volumes of cases and literature, philosophies. Maybe we even got to visit the Zolbush. But
Mohammed, sorry, Jimmy, go ahead. I thought you were landing.
Yeah, I mean, we need a real self-examination and stop enacting these laws that we know very well everybody's circumventing.
Mohammed, thank you, Jimmy. Talking about reviving his political career. I mean, Speaker Kofa, he's a survivalist, political survivalist. I mean, I think he came from the Liberty Party of Bromsky. I'm not sure if he didn't join the UP. I mean, he was the Deputy Minister of State under Ellen Johnson, and then became a CDC member. Is it out of the realm of possibility to see him joining the UP again? Given that I think 11 of his editions are a part of this group that are trying to unseat him.
It is not out of the realm of possibility. Look, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was never a member of the Unity Party when she ran in '85 and won the Senate seat for Montserrado. She won as a party. She was with Jackson. The late Jackson F. Doe in the Liberia Action Party. Ellen Johnson, at that time, we thought she was a member of the Liberia Action Party. So I say that to say that, political affiliation in Liberia does not go along any sort of ideological lines. People just go into parties because this is where their bread is buttered. So it basically follows the money sometimes. I will hope, though, that Speaker Kofa can fight this, can sit there and not resign, not give in to this shenanigan. So look, sometimes in history, the moment, you don't pick the moment. You don't pick the moment to be that one leader, to be that one savior, whether this is savior of democracy or savior of something. Sometimes the moment picks you. And I believe that this moment picks for Nati Kofa, to shine now, to be the torch bearer of righteousness. I'm not saying, that he's a righteous person by all means, because there are all kinds of stories about him. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that this is his moment to now stand up for some kind of civility in the House of Representatives, where these guys every now and then they can just jump up and get up and remove a speaker for no reason other than the money that's been split up, the money that's allegedly coming from the executive branch of government. So I will hope that Fonati Kofa become the hero of the moment, so that, make the rest of us proud, so that, in time to come, history will look at him as the hero of that moment, and not to run away from the moment. We should not encourage people to keep running away from the moment. Oh, my man just resigned. You know that people don't like you. Just go. Just go. You have your money already. Okay, the country got to move on. You know what? If the country has to move on, it has to move on under, uh, you know, the rule of law, under the umbrella of the rule of law. That has to be maintained. And so I will hope that the speaker stays there. He has won a major victory today. This is a big win for him. This is a big win for the Liberian Constitution. This is a big win for law and order. And so he should now fight the rest of this battle, reach out to the rebel elements, bring one or two on. So his goal tonight, tomorrow morning, should be to bring at least one person back on board. And then next thing you know, you're bringing two of them back on board. Whatever that means, whatever that takes, he should be able to do that. The only thing is that these guys are well financed on the other side. So we're talking a lot of money that they've already received. So they are already bought, and these guys that are bought, I mean, you have to repurchase them. I mean, that's another, you're talking massive amount, for him to repurchase these guys, because they don't have any principles other than money. That's basically what it is.
It's not funny, but you make it sound like they're on an auction block, anybody getting bid for.
And they are. They really are.
Mohammed, Duke.
Unfortunate reality.
Yeah, Duke, any last comments on this topic so we can move on to the next topic?
Well, like I said, my position is still the same. I don't see things changing anytime soon for the better, and I just hope that Fonati Kofa is going to be resilient enough to win sufficient number of the renegade, lawmakers to his side, so that this whole thing can come to an end. But I'm not too optimistic. What happened to Victor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the background. I'm not too optimistic as well, as I just stated. These guys, they're probably not going to come around. But I will hope, again, I continue to reiterate that Speaker Fonati Kofa, stands his ground. This moment, he didn't pick this moment. This man was in Rome. He was shaking hands with the Pope, and the rebels decided to storm the Capitol to overthrow the speaker. So this moment picked Fonati Kofa. See, some of us, someone like myself, I see things in an objective fashion. I see things in very objective fashion. I don't see things in the lenses of political affiliation, or I like this person or this person, that person, So just because Fonati Kofa is a member of the CDC does not mean that I can speak against him in this particular situation, because in this situation, those who launched the school are wrong. And all the Liberian people should be outraged. Our colleague, Councillor Freeman was on here. I believe he's, making comment about this somewhere. But all these guys are wrong. We were telling them on this show. Maybe that's why they're not here tonight. maybe they were arguing that the Supreme Court was going to rule against Fanati Kofa, and
I agree with you. I expected
I
tonight to have a full house.
didn't I tell everybody on this show? So I am, in most instances, I am on the right side of history of things. In most instances.
Yeah.
These guys,
Yeah,
that's why they're not here. That's why I think that's why most of them are not here right now, because the blow that has already been done,
yeah,
to them.
yeah. But brother Sharif, I know you are on the right side of the law, and I think all of us would like to be on the right side of the law, except that the reality of our nation and our country is unfortunately not on the side of the law. Instead,
It's
the
true. This is
you
true.
know, right now, I think it's going to boil down to who is going to be willing to pay how much to buy people on their side.
Yeah.
And you can see that yes, the speaker has been in power by this ruling somewhat, but it will require a deeper pocket, to be
Yes.
able to get some of these guys on his
Yes.
side. And
Brother Dukla, Brother Dukla, you mentioned deeper pocket. You have to say that again and again and again. Very, very deep pockets. Because look, each of these guys, to repurchase them is going to cost him a lot of money. Him and
yeah,
his supporters a lot of money. Do you know what it means to go against the forces that have the money, the national wealth, that they're sitting on pile of cash, the national resources, instead of expending this money to build schools in Grand Cape Mount County, to build schools in Grand Jita County, and Grand Bassa County, and all these Nimba County, all these places? They rather use this money to accumulate
yeah,
power
yeah.
and not in the interest of the Liberian people.
No.
They're
Thank you,
not in the
gentlemen.
interest of the
At this
Liberian
time, I think
people.
we should thank you very much. We can pivot to our next topic. Mohammed, I was since you were in mid sentence, the during the course of the week, the government launched, something. I don't know if it is a national development plan, but it is an agenda. We know back, I think in October or so, the arrest agenda was expanded now to include the arrest agenda for inclusive development. I didn't even know it was exclusive initially, but now apparently it's been relaunched to be more inclusive. One of the biggest changes I noticed was, instead of the agriculture, I seen the arrest, they're not talking agribusiness. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, but from $8.4 billion over the next 5 years, which coincidentally is going to lead us into 2029. But they're talking about sourcing this money from private sources, development partners, and the diaspora. What is your take on this, Mohammed? What is this? What is it? Is it a national development plan? I know the finance minister, can you say a lot of stuff, from technology to transportation to equity. I am still trying to make sense of it. Have you been able to make sense of it?
No, I haven't completely followed this, this new pronouncement. But from the description that you are giving this, and this is something that I'm very interested in. I am always interested in, what should be done practically to alter the lives of the Liberian people for the better.
Yeah.
So the fact that agriculture is discussed by the finance minister, technology and all these different components, the different elements, that he introduced there. These are great things. One of the things, J. Victor, I think that the Liberian nation state, people don't realize food is an existential issue, right? Food. You are a country of 100 and over 175 years old, and you cannot feed yourself. the incident of the progressive movement of the 70s and of the late 70s. I don't know if it's early 70s to late 70s, early 80s. The issue that some of them tried to champion was food production. Dr. Toba Natipote, if you remember Susuku, I read about Susuku a lot, and Dr. Toba Natipote was a champion of trying to introduce people from this sort of dependency in the rural areas. Look, you go to the rural areas and people try to buy imported rice coming into the local in the interior and whatnot. When you turn around, like my uncle's house where we live, J. Victor, when you look through the window, forest, very beautiful area.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it now. Very beautiful forest. I mean, just trees and all these different things. And you take a few steps from our house. I mean, you see all these
There's fertile land all around you.
fertile land all around.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that I bring this up to say that, look, from Kalipo, everywhere in that area that I can particularly speak of, there are rich, fertile land all over. I mean, some people will argue with me to say, the contrary, which is okay. But I know from experience, this is something that's always there. And so people like talk about our people to recognize these things and encourage our people to go back to the soil and feed themselves.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to do that. And the fact that, we haven't moved on from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. God, we're in the 21st century. We can no longer use manual labor, manual farming methods to feed a country of 5 to 6 million people. It has to be mechanized. There has to be scientific method of farming to feed ourselves. And and so if the finance minister's point is along those lines, this is something that's great.
Yeah.
That's something that I support. And so I believe that if that is done in Liberia, so the long-term goal should be Liberia should be an exporter and not a consistent importer. Because right now, I mean, the people are laughing at us. You can't feed yourself. And now your public servants are multi-millionaires. Public servants.
Yeah.
What irony? What irony?
In Liberia, most people in other countries they go in the government to render service, but
Yes.
in Liberia we go in the government for government to render us rich.
Yeah.
But you make a point about Dr. Tipote. And the progressives. I mean, I will tell you, Dr. Tipote, he was with the Susuku thing for a very long time, and I don't know where he is now with that, but he's been pushing that. Got some grants from Europe and other places. So I don't know either. But I will tell you too, from the Progressive Alliance side, the PAL. I mean, it is one of the propellants of the April 14 rights protest. The argument was being made that we needed to move away from subsistence farming and empower the local farmer by helping them to mechanize, because the analysis was that the amount of energy put into tilling a parcel of land, that same land, if you were to help the local farmer mechanize, there is almost, I think, I don't remember the figures now, but astronomical, exponential yield that could be derived. And therefore the government was being encouraged, since the local farmer could not pay for the cost of these machines, why don't you band them into a cooperative? They can all contribute to the, and pay the government back and pay these machines.
Right.
But in the process, you would empower the local people. And but that's going to be another argument for another day. Jimmy, I'm coming back to you. This government, when you describe the unforced errors that lie in this wake. Some of our friends say, "Oh, you don't let the government be," you're just talking against it. But look, there are lots of flowery pronouncements that lie in this government's wake. I mean, I can go from the $3 billion refinery, to the $25 million, technology engagement with Necotech, to the 285 yellow machines. So now we're hearing about yet another pronouncement, $8.4 billion. That's no chump change, Jimmy. Um, yeah, and I was reading on, yeah, now of course, little information. I was reading on how they intend to raise this money, and I wasn't sure if I understood how they're going to go about. And then in the midst of all of that, the finance minister, he's making some pronouncement, raising the GDP, from 800 and change to 1,000 or so by in the next 5 years or so. Um, I like us to be optimistic, but do we will any suspicion be well founded, given how this government has managed this to raise our expectations and then only to dash them? What do you make of this 8.4 billion 5-year plan?
And what 8.4 billion was supposed to do?
It is supposed to do everything from buying your slippers. No, I'm joking. There is the front page Africa is reporting. Hang on here. From my end, I can't put it up on the screen, but it is. I mean, there's transportation in there. They're talking about paving the 485, I think, kilometers or something like that. They're talking about investing in technology. They're talking about investing in the youth job creation. They're talking about, it's a whole range of things that they're proposing to do, including agribusiness. I guess tilting away a little bit from just the agriculture to kind of making, blowing it up into a whole business. So there's a whole lot they're promising. But then the way they're telling you it is going to be paid for, I mean, we are in a diaspora. I am deep inside Yola. I'll be honest with you. There is a diaspora return that's going on now in Monrovia. We should have been a part of it, but there are organizational questions, and so. But the president has made his intention known to robustly. I mean, I think that's the word he used. Engage with the diaspora. So the diaspora is being dependent on in there to help raise this money, which I think is a good thing. I think we can all collaborate and help the government, but I'm unaware of any constructive discussions that have taken place, and yet the diaspora community is being factored in there as one of the sources to source this $8.4 billion over the next 5 years.
Well, if I were to look at previous announcements by this administration and how they go about their business, I would say that when they come up with these proposals, that's what they really are. You take it with a grain of salt because it may not come to fruition. So I guess they're trying to bring about some benefit to Liberia, but the mistake is there's nothing concrete. They announce it before it is finalized,
Right.
and as a result, it looks like they didn't tell us the truth, or that was just blah. So it would behoove them to at least finalize a deal before they do it, but they don't seem to be in that business now. This eight,
No, they seem impatient and they seem to jump the gun quickly.
yeah, it's all. I'm not sure. I think what politicians have seen is that our people are very gullible. They believe in stuff without critical thinking. So hence, you buy a bag of rice for them, they vote for you. You you reach out to them once every year when it's time to come to vote. They feel you one of them. They're not really examining these things, so they know that if I just float this out, people will think I'm doing great stuff. It's unfortunate that
Yeah.
this is going on, and that's what I see they take advantage of. You know, the CDC had accused the UP campaign of spreading falsehoods, a lot of falsehoods. The CDC had a lot of its own problems as well, and then so it was easy to spread falsehoods on. But now it's time for governance, so it's more difficult, and we are seeing if you want, we can call them falsehoods too. When you make these proclamations and these announcements and then don't go follow through with it, these are falsehoods.
Yeah. I mean, they have to be until they can prove us wrong or prove us
Yeah,
otherwise. I mean, Duke, we're being, promised, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but there's this pronouncement. What have you heard about it? Oh, did Duke get off? All right. Um, so yes, Jimmy. I mean, like you said, we want to be supportive of this government, but it just seems that they have. I don't want to say misled us, but they've disappointed us on many occasions. And I would rather see you know the government dedicating some investment team, maybe of Liberians or foreigner, but breaking ground for some $10 million investment here, $40 million investment here, whatever that is going to be. But these concept papers, they come and they put them out to us without much explanation. When you ask, then you become categorized as not in favor of the government. But we have our doubts, we have our reasons why we're asking these questions. So yeah, I read about this last week, and then Dennis dropped it in the chat room again. I went over it again because the first time I read it, I thought I may have missed one or two things, but I went and read it over again. There's not really much there, so I guess the plan is forthcoming. Hopefully, they will bring us more details. I don't know if there are any callers on the standby. Yeah, 8 billion. Yeah, 8.4 billion, my brother. Fixed electronics. Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, Jimmy, do we have any numbers to call tonight?
No, we didn't. It was not set up
Okay.
for calling.
All right.
But if you can give them your number,
Yeah.
and they can call you directly, and they talk over the microphone.
Okay. All right. So, but great show tonight. We can also, if we don't have, usually I read the interactions, but let's do a little shout out here quickly. We don't usually do that. If you'll help me here, I will start out.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm on my. So tonight, let's give a shout out to, starting with E.K. Seaton. Welcome and thanks for tuning in, E.K. Seaton. Also, Fix Electronics is a regular here. Fix. Thanks. I usually read all of your comments. Thanks for joining in tonight. Of course, our counselor in-house, League of Men, Councilor Freeman, he said, yeah, I still have reservations about his position. I called him once, he was on, and I was saying to him, I just couldn't understand how he would not see this as not a numbers thing, as opposed to, rule of law, respecting the rule of law.
Mm.
But he argues that I think he believes the speaker is damaged because he doesn't have the numbers, and he has lost the confidence of his colleagues. And I was saying I agree with you, but there is a process. But anyway, that's Councilor Freeman. Mohammed, we're just giving a shout out. I know we don't have callers. The lines are not open tonight, so you guys can help me. I'm here with Mufti Mohammed B. Sano. Mufti, thanks for tuning in. Stanley, thanks for joining us. Ralph Wilson, thanks for joining us. Ralph Majodi is a regular here. I read several comments from is it Majodi or Majodi? So one of you guys can take it over. Let's give a shout out.
Fix Electronics is
Yeah.
making a regular contribution here. Thank you, Fix. We always happy to have you along for the ride. Emmanuel Bro, he's another regular and faithful follower of the show. And we got Patrick Collier. We appreciate your comment. Boniface Sawyer and Salia Mnya. And we got Johnny Johnson. Thank you for all your comments. Prince Berchia Williams. Thank you for your contribution here. And Alfred Dennis. Alfred Dennis says, what did he say? He said we don't need James Monroe to be any capital city now. The name for Monrovia originally was Christopolis, City of Christ. So thank you for your comments. Who else we got? Isaac Tucker, and Stanley, you already mentioned him. And that's about it. That's about it, JVic. No, you're more mute.
I see why you couldn't hear me. No, I was saying, Mohammed, I'm not sure if you made your input on this new pronouncement by the government of
8 billion.
Yeah, 8.4 billion, which sounds like a national agenda, I guess. But the arrest agenda has been now, augmented to address an inclusive agenda as well as the county development, I think, agenda. That's what they call that. So I don't know if you have any insights into this, if there's anything other than what is being reported in the press, what it seeks to do, what exactly, it seeks to address, how it is going to be paid for, those kinds of questions. You're muted.
It's kind of what I said earlier that I'll reiterate. Food production is critically important for the survival of the country. As a country, you want to be able to feed yourself. So if the government's direction now is an inclusive agenda to include all these critical components, that is a good thing. Now, you mentioned, funding. How is this going to be funded? Look, Liberia has a lot of money. There are a lot of resources in our country, to the extent that I don't think we need to borrow. We are a big borrowing nation, but we don't need to borrow, right? Because there are lots of resources, sources of money that the country can tap into. Look, so if I'm in government, and not to deviate from the question further, I will be asking myself, if I'm close to the center of power, as some of these guys are, I'll be asking myself every day, I mean, borrow, the fact that the country has been borrowing forever, what good has it done to Liberia? Back in 1871, there was a loan from London. Right? We know about that loan. You come up to the turn of the 19th century. There was a loan from the United States government. In
Hey,
1920,
hang
Firestone
on,
Foods.
hang on for a second, Mohammed. I think we all need to mute, and there's feedback coming back through. Let's give Mohammed a space.
In 1920, there was a loan, that Firestone, you can call it a subprime loan that Firestone forced on the country, on Liberia. And we had a president that loved, Firestone, I believe, more than he loved the Liberian people. And, he put the country in bad debt. And then you go into the 30s and 40s. In the 40s, a lot of the things that you see were built for Liberia, the Freeport, the Roberts International Airport, you know, all of these things were, the Omega Navigation Station, the VOA, station in a relay station in Monrovia. These were built by the United States government because the United States, wanted to, actually not wanted, but Liberia was being used as a, as a center of CIA activities in the region that people didn't know about. So therefore, through the Roberts International Airport, which was used as a conduit to transport weapons, and troops, perhaps, but I believe weapons, to the UNITA rebels in Angola, and and the Renamo rebels in Mozambique. Anti, freedom, groups fighting against, the progressives in that area, in those countries. So, what have we done? So the question is, what have we done with the resources that we've had?
That is a critical question,
what have
Mohammed.
we done with the resources?
I knew that's where you were going with this. Yes,
Yeah.
what have we done, and what do we do with the resources? I
Right.
mean, I just feel like you, and I'm with you on this. I just feel like,
And I just want to land on this thought, right?
please do.
So, and maybe you can educate me on this, but from what I understand, the OE summit, which was in what was it, 78, 79, the OE summit, the OU village, all the different infrastructure, including the bridge, the new bridge, the Gilbert Tucker Bridge. These were built with fundings from, multilateral institutions like the World Bank or IMF. Some of them, from what I read, and at least you could say that Toba borrowed money to build Liberia. These facilities are still there.
Yeah.
Decades after he's dead, the country continues to benefit from some of them. Well, some of them now, because the fact that the country has not maintained the OE village doesn't mean that it was a bad investment. So you can say that the Gilbert Tucker Bridge was a very good investment. The OU village was a good investment. The institutions, so what the president was able to do, he was able to build high schools in Zoedru, in Harbel and Vonjama. These multilateral high schools were built.
Yeah.
From those kinds of loans that were, World Bank loans and stuff like that. So you have a leader that borrow and build infrastructure. You have other leaders that come along and borrow and put the money in their pocket and build their own personal infrastructure, right? So the bigger question now is, what has borrowing done for us? So if I'm at the center of power, J. Victor, is that I will be asking, what has it done? The fact that nobody can answer this question, so let us stop borrowing. We don't need to borrow.
No. Listen, I was going to chime in, but thank you very much. I think you so succinctly put that point. There's no need for me to belabor it. I want to thank you all very much. I think we've been here long enough. We don't necessarily have to, do 2 hours. I think we've done enough. You guys have been wonderful tonight. So, why don't we go around and do our closing? There are no callers tonight. I want to thank you all ever so much. I think every time I join you guys here, you brought in my own perspective, so I appreciate that. Dude, you haven't spoken in a little while. Why don't we begin with you? Let's do our closing, brother. You can talk about the Supreme Court. You can talk about the budget, the national agenda, $8.4 billion plan for the next 5 years. This person has been posting and reposting this thing. And those Asset Talker is also on too. I'm honored by your recommendation. Dan, that's some modest guy right there. Somebody took you on tonight.
Yeah, because
I'm kind of shocked that our best buddy, Dr. Wallo, is he's apparently not.
Yeah, maybe he got other engagements.
Yeah. So, and I know there's some friends who are watching from Monrovia. They would like to remain anonymous, but I know they tune in, so I want to thank them because when we started here, it was after 1 o'clock in Monrovia, and they stayed on as soon as I logged in. You know how you log in, they say so and so person is watching with you, So I want to thank them for being loyal, supporters of what we do here. We come in here. I know Duke is closing. We come in here, we don't take any sides. We just put it out there as we see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Duke, you're closing, brother. I think you're still muted.
Yeah, I was saying it's going to be a bit of a long closing here. I didn't have time to weigh in on the agriculture thing there.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I never did.
All right, we'll give you a little more for your closing. Then you can go ahead.
Yeah,
both of them together.
You see, for the longest time, we've known that whatever we do in Liberia, and I shouldn't even say Liberia. I don't know if you can point to any country, and I mean any country, that has been developed by these assistance that has been given to them by World Bank and IMF, you name it. It has not. Rather, these countries have developed by leaders who were far-sighted, leaders who were willing to take the right decisions for the country. Like Brother Sherry just mentioned some of the things that William Talbot did. He's no longer with us, but those infrastructures are with us today. And we can still benefit from them. We can still make use of them if we have someone who can think of those. I mean, the Edward James Roy building is still there. We can use that building. The Gabriel Tucker Bridge is there. We are still making use of it. So our progress in Liberia and to sustain whatever progress we are going to embark on has to originate from the land. Agriculture is there's no better opportunity that we have than our agriculture, because it's not cost effective, it's not going to cost us much, and you just need to have in place a system that is going to encourage us to be productive. I mean, forget about other things, but our staple food that we eat, then we don't have to import it from Asia. We don't have to import it from the Philippines, Thailand, or Vietnam, you name it. We can feed ourselves. The land is there. The manpower is there. We just need to put in place a structure that can guarantee in all the 15 counties a production mechanism that is going to be sustained at the national level, so that we are all participant in this process. And look, I can tell you from my experience, the United Nations has a center, an agricultural center based in Cairo, Egypt, where scholars from all over the world go there, particularly for developing countries like Liberia and other places, where they impact capacity building on people from those countries, so that they go back into their countries and implement those, the knowledge that they have acquired from those centers. So the idea is, instead of having to go from Africa to UN to whatever faraway place, you can acquire that same knowledge right on the continent.
But Duke,
And
let me ask you this though, and I know you, I don't want you to lose your thought. But there is a very persistent problem that we continue to face. The question of trust, you know, it's really it's a major problem. I mean, just this evening, a family friend and I were talking at a professional level. I'm not talking about young starters or but these are professional people. They decided to collaborate, trying to retire, kind of a third or fourth career change or whatever it is. And they only been existing for less than a year. They're already having disagreements. And I tell you, over the past couple of years, my family and I, we've been going back home. My kids decided to begin preparing for my resettlement. I want to resettle back home, but we had to put our project on hold because it's just difficult to rely on anybody, and especially the family people around you. So is this a trust? Because we have to be able to trust each other to do things. You over here, you can be in Canada, do and decide, you know what? I will sponsor a $150,000 little whatever we call it, condo or whatever it is. But I can't be there every day. You can't get on the plane every day and go. You decide to designate a family person. Usually those are the people who begin to dupe you. It is a problem. So we think that and extend it into national service. Somewhere I was listening to someone talking, we just said that tonight. People go in government with the expectation of getting from government instead of going to
it.
Yeah. But you see, Brother Victor, this situation that you just described is a situation that permeates right across the nation, and it's been exacerbated by the aftermath of the war, where people's life situations changed so dramatically that I've heard lawyers who have been, how lawyers have these, is it escrow account, whatever, client. The lawyers are the first people who invested this money. The lawyers who are supposed to be guiding this money, they are the first people who invested this money from their clients. So the trust factor is a big, but
it is a problem.
It's a big thing. And
some is well-founded, some is unfounded, but it's our culture.
Actually, in my experience, I would like to blame those of us that are in the diaspora.
You started to sound like tower now. I will put you in another box.
No, seriously, for me, the big part of the blame should go to us, those of us that are in the diaspora. I mean, someone who hasn't handled $1,000 in his entire life, and you trust him with $10,000, you are doing that at your own peril.
Good point.
Good point.
I'm sorry. I mean, that's one. The other thing is, look, you can do this in a way that you are not going to be as affected as people have been. You can do it in stages. You don't have to do it all at once, because you know what? The way we go about doing these things, we are just encouraging people to victimize people even more.
I hear you.
I tell people, listen, I've lived here for 32 years. This is my home. And if I ever decide I'm going to go back to the Republic of Liberia, I'm actually going to go build houses myself. I'm not going to entrust my father. I'm not going to entrust my mother. I'm not going to entrust my sister, myself. I'm going to go there and do my whatever it is that I want to do. I don't need to trust anybody
Yeah.
because there's no trust in Liberia anymore.
I hear you. Thanks.
I mean, if your children are not safe with your mother, where else can they be safe?
That's right.
I'm sorry. I mean,
They can't be
I've
done.
just seen it and heard it so many times that I blame us. I mean, when are we going to learn? Every day in, every day out, you hear people being duped. You hear people. eh, I mean, look, Liberia is for the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Trust me. It does
Thank
not
you.
matter if
Thank
he
you.
or she is your brother or sister. They are all just as bad.
Yeah. Thank you,
Because they don't,
Jimmy.
I mean, like I said, somebody who hasn't handled $10 in his entire life and then you give him $1,000 to keep and you expect him to keep it? No, they
Thank you,
won't.
Jimmy.
And I mean, that aside, we need a system that will promote our like a local agriculture. There are many places on the continent of Africa where a bilateral relationship can help us to do that better. Without like it doesn't cost much. We just have to have a leader who has the vision to develop agriculture in Liberia.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and again, that's one of the things that is going to cost us less and it's going to be less burdensome compared to other projects. Because
And this is why so many people are complaining about these last well, maybe Ellen Johnson tried, but the Bobo leaders because how is it you are a leader and you don't even talk to your people? How do you inspire the people? Duke. I mean, thank you, brother Jimmy. I know you have your own thoughts, but Duke is onto something.
Yeah,
How do you send
you
someone? How do
know,
you send someone say to LDEA right to go and arrest $100 million worth of drug, but you're paying the person, maybe $3,000 a month or something like that. Is it really realistic? I think
no,
that's the point he's making here.
yeah, well, you before any nation became a great nation, its citizens made sacrifices.
yeah,
That is not in our vocabulary.
Mhm.
We have to make a sacrifice for the next generation. In other words, how we labor today may not benefit us, but it will benefit generations to come.
Paying it forward.
Yeah. And we have to be willing to forego, the comfort of of um, overseas, or the comfort of being well endowed in money and stuff like that. We have to go out there and give Liberia everything we got, break our backs, if we're going to bring this country to somewhere. Agriculture is a national issue. Is because of you need food security. You can't depend on imported food. It was a misstep a long time ago, when we started depending on rice and to be imported for us. So now that we've recognized the significance of being able to produce food for ourselves, how much are we willing to put in it? Because like one of the posters said, it's challenging. Agriculture is not easy. Oh, and we are aware that it's only mechanized farming uh, is the way to do it. But there has to be some land reform or some other stuff. I remember India had a beautiful. They were the model of revolutionizing agriculture in the country, but they had a lot of land reform. People had to get together, just like you're saying. People had to come together and do it collaboratively. That's how they managed to have it, and those are things we have to do. Um, we hear people talking about it. Since Tolbert days, I used to hear Tolbert talking about it. Tubman had his on a farm. Dole had his farm. He used to show himself, but are we making the right type of effort to bring it. You go to neighboring Ivory Coast and you see the cocoa for miles and miles and miles. It requires a significant investment, and so we have to be prepared. Like I said, we have to prepare to sacrifice. If we look at our budget today, we notice that all of it's going on recurring expenses and salaries. That's not going to do it. It's
Yeah.
not going to cut it.
It's not gonna cut it. Jimmy, you talk about the Ivory Coast. I mean, I fled to the Ivory Coast, and Mohammed is gonna do his closing. But I mean, I remember when I got into the Ivory Coast, I was astounded. You see mountains of plantain, by the roadside.
That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
That's
talking about
correct.
Banane to Man to Yamsogo, all along the roadside, so agriculture, But anyway, Brother Sheriff,
Yeah.
your question.
And there was a time in Liberia too that there were factories, right? There were factories, shoe factory, mattress factory, and all these different factories. The Maserati group of companies. After the revolutionaries said that these belong to the bourgeois, and so therefore we're going to destroy them, and they were destroyed forever, and they never came back. And so one of the things that I mentioned at the top of the show, which someone said that they were willing to challenge me on in a debate. This is really not a debatable issue. It's as clear as night and day. I argue that Liberia was not founded on Christian principle. The country called Liberia, 1822 is not the beginning of the country that later became known as Liberia. 1822 was a period. It's not the beginning. And before 1822, when the returnees and the repatriated Africans came back, and some came from the Caribbeans and whatnot, and built churches and what have you. What was there? What was there before? So I want this viewer to answer that question.
Jimmy.
Yeah, before 1822, what was there before? So don't tell me about this Christian principle that people came from abroad and imposed on you. So that is your problem in Liberia. You don't read and you don't understand historical inaccuracies from accurate information, and that's the problem. But I'm not going to waste much time on that. What I can say is that there's a lot to be learned from this Supreme Court decision. This is a great day for the Constitution. I don't care what the anti-COFA bloc thinks, but it's a great day for the Constitution, and it's a defeat for the rebel elements that try to destroy that constitutional effort, that try their constitutional pathway to power. They keep calling themselves majority black. They continue to call themselves majority black. It's not in the Constitution. I like how you call them, J. Victor, 43.
Yeah.
The 43s. And I will call them the 43 rebels. I call them the 43 rebels. And so that's what they are. It's not majority black. Majority black is not in the Constitution. No. And so the fact that they try to overthrow their speaker, and the Supreme Court clearly tells them you need a speaker to preside. However, I can't make the speaker bring you guys together. I can't force you.
Yeah.
This is something you have to go and decide yourself. Make laws. In other words, go ahead and make some laws. Okay? I will conclude on this. The 1986 Constitution, what big improvement has there been all these years later? Now, under George Weah, there was, during George Weah's administration, the dual citizenship bill that passed. What else of significance? I mean, somebody needs to educate me on this, because this is a place that I'm willing to learn. What legislative landmark has been made since 1986? Heck, we can't even change the presidential term. The senators sit there for 9 years. Members of the House of Representatives 6 years. These are too long.
Too long, yeah.
ridiculousness of the Liberian Constitution of
Yeah.
'86 is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And you would think that these guys will worry about that, but they're all worried about taking money. You know, they are being bought with large pile of money, large sum of money to remove their speaker every single time.
Yeah.
And the fact that Kofa is standing up to them is great. And I hope that Speaker Kofa will continue to sit there and challenge these guys every step of the way. Because, again, in conclusion, sometimes in history, we don't pick the moment picks us. You know, a great politician said, I'm just paraphrasing a great politician who once said this. And so I will conclude with that.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Let's close out by welcoming TT. I think when we did the appreciation, TT had not signed on. TT, welcome as a
Okay.
talker. Yeah, and is that McBorough, Jane? So we'd like to thank you all. Thank you all very much, gentlemen. Great show. Great discussion. Let's do it again, hopefully next Friday. But like you all said, it's gonna be next, few days are gonna be pretty interesting in Liberia. The way forward, how the executive is gonna behave, how the 43 is gonna behave, because they've been all on the air with declaring victory. We'll see. All right then. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good night.
We all have